morning sun cast long shadows across the sprawling movie lot in Burbank, California. Stage 7 buzzed with the controlled chaos that only a major Hollywood production could orchestrate. Cables snaked across the concrete floor like mechanical serpents, while towering lights stood sentinel over elaborate sets that would soon transform into the backdrop for cinematic magic. In the midst of this organized pandemonium, a figure moved with quiet purpose through the shadows. Dressed in simple jeans and a worn black t-shirt, he carried himself with an understated presence that seemed almost invisible among the flashy costumes and dramatic personalities that populated the set. His dark hair fell slightly across his face as he observed the intricate dance of filmmaking with genuine fascination. This was Keanu Reeves, though few on the bustling set had noticed his arrival. He had a habit of arriving early to his projects, preferring to absorb the atmosphere and energy of a production before the spotlight inevitably found him. Today, he found himself drawn to the quieter corners of the stage, where the real work happened away from the cameras and the ego-driven performances. "Excuse me, sir, but you can't be here without proper identification," came a sharp voice from behind him. Keanu turned to see a man in his late 40s approaching with the kind of swagger that immediately announced his perceived importance. This was Marcus Blackwood, the film's assistant director, a man whose reputation for being difficult preceded him like a storm cloud. His designer clothes and perfectly styled hair seemed almost comically out of place on the working set, but his expression carried the weight of someone who believed his own hype. "I'm with the production," Keanu replied calmly, his voice carrying its characteristic quiet strength. Marcus looked him up and down with barely concealed disdain. "Right, and I'm Steven Spielberg. Look, buddy, I don't know how you got past security, but this is a closed set. We don't need any more wannabe actors hanging around looking for their big break." Before Keanu could respond, both men's attention was drawn to the sound of someone struggling nearby. An elderly black man was attempting to maneuver a heavy cart loaded with cleaning supplies around a particularly crowded area of the set. The cart's wheels had gotten tangled in some loose cables, and the man was clearly having difficulty freeing it without disturbing the expensive equipment surrounding him. The man's name was Samuel Washington, though most people on the set simply called him Sam. At 73 years old, he had been working as a janitor in various studios for over 4 decades. His weathered hands told the story of countless hours spent maintaining the spaces where dreams were manufactured, and his gentle eyes held the wisdom of someone who had seen the industry change dramatically over the years. "Mr. Marcus," Sam called out politely, his voice carrying the respectful tone he had learned was necessary for survival in this environment. "I'm sorry to bother you, but could you help me move this cart? I don't want to damage any of your equipment." Marcus's response was immediate and cutting. "Are you kidding me right now? Can't you see I'm dealing with an actual situation here?" He gestured dismissively toward Keanu, who was watching the interaction with growing concern. "Figure it out yourself, old man. That's what they pay you for, isn't it?" Sam's shoulders sagged slightly, but he maintained his dignity. "Yes, sir, I'll manage. And while you're at it," Marcus continued, his voice rising enough to draw attention from nearby crew members, "maybe try to stay out of everyone's way. We've got a movie to make here, and we don't need you shuffling around getting in the way of important work." The words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Several crew members had stopped their work to listen, some looking uncomfortable, others simply turning away to avoid getting involved. This was Marcus's domain, and everyone knew that crossing him could mean career suicide. Keanu felt something cold settle in his stomach as he watched Sam's face. The older man's expression remained composed, but there was a flicker of pain in his eyes that spoke to years of similar treatment. It was the look of someone who had learned to swallow their dignity in order to survive. "I understand, Mr. Marcus," Sam said quietly. "I'll be more careful." But Marcus wasn't finished. "You know what? I'm getting tired of having to explain basic concepts to people who should know better. Maybe it's time we considered whether someone your age is really up for this kind of work anymore." The threat was clear, and it sent a visible tremor through Sam's composure. At his age, finding another job would be nearly impossible, and everyone on the set knew it. The silence that followed was deafening. That's when Keanu stepped forward. "Actually," he said, his voice cutting through the tension with quiet authority, "I think Sam here is doing exactly what he should be doing." Marcus whirled around, irritation flashing across his features. "Excuse me, I don't remember asking for your input, whoever you are." "You're right," Keanu replied, moving toward Sam's cart. "You didn't ask, but sometimes the right thing to do doesn't require an invitation." Without another word, Keanu began untangling the cables from the cart's wheels. His movements were efficient and careful, showing respect for both the equipment and Sam's situation. Sam watched in amazement as this stranger, who could have simply walked away, chose instead to help. "Sir, you don't need to," Sam began, but Keanu looked up with a gentle smile. "It's no problem at all. These cables can be tricky." He continued working, his actions speaking louder than any speech about respect and human decency could have. Marcus, meanwhile, was growing increasingly agitated. "Look, I don't know who you think you are, but you can't just—" "Actually, I think I can," Keanu interrupted, still focused on freeing the cart. "See, the way I understand it, we're all here to make a movie, and that means we're all on the same team. Sam here has been doing his part to keep this place running smoothly, probably longer than most of us have been in the business." He stood up, having successfully freed the cart, and turned to face Marcus directly. "So when someone who's been contributing to this industry for decades needs a hand, I think helping out is the least we can do." "Who the hell do you think you are?" Marcus demanded, his face reddening with anger and embarrassment as more crew members gathered around the unfolding drama. Keanu was about to respond when a voice called out from across the set. "Keanu, there you are. We've been looking for you." The voice belonged to David Chen, the film's director, who was approaching with a warm smile and an obvious sense of relief. The effect of his words was immediate and dramatic. Marcus's expression shifted from anger to confusion to dawning horror as the pieces fell into place. "Oh, and Sam," David continued as he reached the group, "thank you for getting here early to help with the setup. I know the schedule's been crazy, but having you here to keep things organized makes all the difference." The silence that followed was profound. Marcus stood frozen, his earlier bravado evaporating as he realized the magnitude of his mistake. Not only had he been dismissive and cruel to a respected member of the crew, but he had done so in front of one of Hollywood's most beloved and influential actors. Keanu placed a gentle hand on Sam's shoulder. "David, I was just helping Sam with his cart. Seems like the cables got a bit tangled up." "Happens all the time," David replied, though his eyes had found Marcus and his expression was growing concerned. "Marcus, is everything all right here?" Marcus opened his mouth, but no words came out. The weight of his actions was settling on him like a lead blanket, and he could see his career flashing before his eyes. In an industry where reputation was everything, treating people badly in front of someone like Keanu Reeves was tantamount to professional suicide. Sam, ever gracious, tried to defuse the situation. "Everything's fine, Mr. David. Just a small misunderstanding." But Keanu wasn't willing to let it go so easily. "Actually, David, I think there might be some things we need to discuss about how people are being treated on this set." His voice remained calm, but there was an underlying steel that made it clear he was serious. David, who had worked with Keanu on previous projects, recognized the tone immediately. When Keanu Reeves felt strongly about something, it was worth paying attention to. "Of course," David replied. "Marcus, why don't we step aside for a moment?" As David and Marcus moved away for what was clearly going to be a difficult conversation, Keanu turned his full attention to Sam. The older man was still processing what had just happened, his hands trembling slightly as he gripped the handle of his cart. "Are you all right?" Keanu asked, his voice gentle with genuine concern. Sam looked up at him with eyes that were bright with unshed tears. Yes, sir, thank you. You didn't have to do that." "Actually, I think I did," Keanu replied. "See, I've learned something over the years. The way we treat people when we think nobody's watching, that's who we really are. And the way we treat people when we have power over them, that says everything about our character." He gestured toward the bustling set around them. "All of this, the lights, the cameras, the fancy equipment, none of it matters if we forget that we're all human beings deserving of respect. Sam nodded slowly, his composure returning. You know, Mr. Reeves, I've been working in this business for over 40 years. I've seen a lot of changes, a lot of different kinds of people. But I've learned that you can tell everything you need to know about someone by how they treat the people who can't do anything for them. That's wisdom, Keanu acknowledged. And you're absolutely right. The janitor, the security guard, the person serving your coffee, how we interact with them reveals our true character. They stood together in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the controlled chaos of the film set continue around them. It was Sam who spoke first. You know what the hardest part is? He said quietly. It's not the disrespect, really. I've dealt with that my whole life. It's watching young people come into this business and think that treating others badly is how you show you're important. They don't realize they're just diminishing themselves. Keanu nodded thoughtfully. I've seen it too. People who think that putting others down somehow elevates them. But real strength, real confidence, it lifts others up. My grandmother used to say that how you treat the people who serve you says more about you than how you treat the people who can serve you, Sam continued. She cleaned houses for wealthy families her whole life, and she always said you could tell a person's true nature by whether they saw her as a human being or just as invisible help. Your grandmother sounds like a wise woman. She was. She also taught me that dignity isn't something someone can take away from you. It's something you carry inside yourself. Sam straightened his shoulders as he spoke, and Keanu could see the strength that had carried him through decades of challenges. Across the set, the conversation between David and Marcus was clearly not going well. Even from a distance, it was obvious that Marcus was on the receiving end of a serious dressing down. Several crew members were stealing glances in their direction, and word was spreading quickly about what had happened. I hope I didn't get that young man in too much trouble, Sam said, though his voice suggested he wasn't entirely sorry. Keanu considered this. I think Marcus got himself in trouble. What happened here today was just the consequence of choices he made. Still, Sam mused, everyone deserves a chance to learn from their mistakes. The generosity of spirit in Sam's words struck Keanu deeply. Here was a man who had just been publicly humiliated and threatened, and he was still capable of extending compassion to the person who had wronged him. It was a reminder of why Keanu had felt compelled to step in, not just because of the injustice, but because someone like Sam deserved to be treated with the respect his character commanded. You're a better person than I am, Keanu said with genuine admiration. I'm not sure I would be so forgiving. Sam chuckled softly. Oh, I'm not perfect, Mr. Reeves. I've had my moments of anger and bitterness, but I learned a long time ago that carrying hate is like picking up a hot coal with the intention of throwing it at someone else. You're the one who gets burned. Their conversation was interrupted by Marcus's return. David had clearly laid down the law, because Marcus approached with his head down and his earlier arrogance completely deflated. When he reached them, he stopped and took a deep breath before speaking. Mr. Washington, he began, his voice barely above a whisper, I owe you an apology. What I said to you was completely inappropriate and unprofessional. There's no excuse for how I treated you. Sam studied him for a moment before nodding. I appreciate that, Mr. Marcus. And Mr. Reeves, Marcus continued, turning to face Keanu with obvious discomfort. I'm sorry you had to witness that, and I'm sorry for not recognizing you and for... He trailed off, clearly struggling with the magnitude of his mistakes. Keanu's response was measured. The apology you should be most concerned about is the one you just gave to Sam. As for the rest, well, recognition isn't really the point. The point is treating people with basic human decency, regardless of who they are or who might be watching. Marcus nodded miserably. You're absolutely right. I've been so focused on trying to prove myself in this business that I lost sight of what actually matters. The good news, Sam interjected gently, is that it's never too late to change course. I've seen people learn from their mistakes and become better for it. David approached the group, his expression serious but not unkind. Marcus, I think you should take the rest of the day to think about what happened here. We'll talk more tomorrow about how to move forward. It was a gentle way of sending Marcus home, giving him time to process and reflect without making the situation worse. Marcus nodded gratefully and began to walk away, but he stopped and turned back one more time. "Mr. Washington," he called out, "would it be all right if I brought you a cup of coffee tomorrow morning? I'd like to hear some of those stories about the old days, if you're willing to share them." Sam's face broke into the first genuine smile he'd shown all day. "I'd like that, Mr. Marcus. I'd like that very much." As Marcus finally left the set, David shook his head in amazement. "Keanu, I can't thank you enough for stepping in. That situation could have gotten much worse if you hadn't been here." "I'm just glad Sam didn't have to handle it alone," Keanu replied. "Nobody should have to put up with that kind of treatment." "Absolutely agree. And Sam, I want you to know that what happened today is completely unacceptable. If anyone ever treats you that way again, I want you to come directly to me." Sam nodded gratefully. "Thank you, Mr. David. That means a lot coming from you." As the immediate crisis passed and the normal rhythm of the set began to resume, Keanu found himself walking alongside Sam as the older man began his rounds. They moved through the various areas of the stage, Sam pointing out different aspects of the production and sharing stories from his decades in the business. "You know," Sam said as they paused near an elaborate period set, "I was here when they filmed the original Superman movie back in the 70s. Christopher Reeve was just about the kindest man you'd ever want to meet. Always had time to talk to everyone, from the biggest star to the person sweeping the floors." "That doesn't surprise me," Keanu replied. "I think there's something about this business that either brings out the best in people or the worst. The pressure, the ego, the constant judgment. It can make people forget who they are. Or it can show you exactly who you are," Sam added wisely. "I've seen actors who were complete unknowns treat everyone with respect, and I've seen major stars who couldn't be bothered to learn anyone's name. Success doesn't change you, it reveals you." They continued their conversation as Sam went about his work, and Keanu was struck by how much the older man knew about the technical aspects of filmmaking. His observations were sharp and his insights valuable, the result of 4 decades spent watching the industry evolve. "Have you ever thought about writing a book?" Keanu asked. "The stories you could tell, the changes you've witnessed, it would be fascinating." Sam laughed. "Who would want to read about an old janitor's memories? You'd be surprised. The best stories often come from the people who were watching from the sidelines. You've had a front row seat to history." As the morning progressed, and the set filled with more cast and crew members, word of the earlier incident began to spread. But rather than becoming a source of gossip or drama, it seemed to create a different kind of energy on the set. People were more conscious of their interactions, more aware of how they treated one another. Keanu noticed that several crew members made a point of greeting Sam personally, and more than one person stopped to ask if he needed help with anything. It was as if the morning's events had served as a reminder of the basic human courtesy that should exist in any workplace. During a break in filming, Keanu found himself sitting with Sam in a quiet corner of the set, both of them watching the controlled chaos of a major production in full swing. "Can I ask you something?" Keanu said. "In all your years in this business, what's kept you going? What's kept you from becoming bitter or cynical?" Sam was quiet for a long moment before answering. "I think it's because I never forgot why I was here. I'm not here to be famous or important. I'm here to do my job well and to help other people do theirs. There's dignity in that, purpose in that." He gestured toward the bustling set. "Every movie that gets made employs hundreds of people. Every story that gets told might touch millions of lives. I may not be in front of the camera, but I'm part of that process. I help create the environment where those stories can be told. That's a beautiful way to look at it." "My wife, she passed away 3 years ago. She used to say that every job has the potential to be a ministry if you approach it with the right heart. Whether you're cleaning floors or running a company, you have the opportunity to make life a little better for the people around you." Keanu felt a deep respect for this man who had found meaning and purpose in work that others might see as menial. It was a reminder that dignity came not from what you did, but how you did it. She sounds like she was a remarkable woman. She was. 47 years of marriage, and she never stopped believing that people were basically good, even when they didn't act like it. Sam's eyes grew distant with memory. She would have liked what you did today. She always said that standing up for what's right is never the wrong thing to do, even when it's difficult. As the afternoon wore on, the incident with Marcus seemed to transform into something positive. David made a point of publicly acknowledging Sam's contributions to the production during a crew meeting, and several department heads followed suit by recognizing other behind-the-scenes workers who often went unnoticed. When Marcus returned the following morning, true to his word, he approached Sam with 2 cups of coffee and a genuine desire to make amends. What followed was the beginning of an unlikely friendship between 2 men from very different backgrounds, who found common ground in their love of storytelling and their commitment to doing better. Marcus, it turned out, had grown up in a working-class family himself and had allowed his insecurities about fitting into Hollywood's elite culture to poison his behavior toward others. Sam's willingness to forgive and his patience in sharing his experiences helped Marcus reconnect with the values he had abandoned in his climb up the industry ladder. Over the weeks that followed, their morning coffee conversations became a regular fixture on the set. Marcus learned about Sam's life, his service in Vietnam, his years working multiple jobs to support his family, his quiet pride in his children's accomplishments. Sam, in turn, learned about Marcus's struggles with imposter syndrome and his fear that showing vulnerability would be perceived as weakness. "You know what I learned from watching Mr. Reeves that day?" Marcus confided to Sam one morning. "Real strength isn't about proving you're better than other people. It's about using whatever power you have to lift others up." "That's a hard lesson to learn," Sam replied. "Especially in a business where everyone's fighting for position and recognition. But it's the only lesson that matters, isn't it? At the end of the day, how we treat each other is the only thing that really counts." The transformation in Marcus didn't go unnoticed by the rest of the crew. His approach to his job became more collaborative, more respectful. He began to see his role not as someone who wielded power over others, but as someone who helped facilitate the creative process for everyone involved. Keanu, meanwhile, continued to arrive early to sets, not just on this production, but on future projects as well. He found that those quiet morning hours, spent in conversation with the people who made the magic possible, were often the most valuable part of his day. He learned about their families, their dreams, their challenges, and he was consistently amazed by the depth of wisdom and experience that existed among the people who were rarely in the spotlight. The story of what happened that morning spread throughout Hollywood, not as gossip or scandal, but as a reminder of the importance of treating everyone with dignity and respect. It became one of those industry stories that got passed down from veteran to newcomer, a cautionary tale about the consequences of letting ego override basic human decency. For Sam, the incident marked a turning point in how he was perceived and treated on film sets. Directors began seeking him out specifically for their projects, knowing that his presence brought a sense of stability and wisdom that benefited everyone involved. He became something of a mentor to younger crew members, sharing not just practical knowledge about the business, but life lessons about maintaining dignity and purpose in any profession. Years later, when asked about that morning on Stage 7, Keanu would reflect on how much he learned from both Sam and Marcus. From Sam, he learned about the quiet strength that comes from finding meaning in service to others. From Marcus, he learned about the possibility of redemption and the power of genuine remorse to transform both the person asking for forgiveness and the person granting it. The thing about that day, Keanu would later say, is that it reminded all of us that every interaction is a choice. We can choose to see each other as competitors or obstacles, or we can choose to see each other as fellow human beings deserving of respect and kindness. The movie business can be tough, but it doesn't have to make us tough in all the wrong ways. Sam continued working well into his 70s, becoming something of a legend among those who knew him. His quiet dignity and unwavering kindness left an impression on countless people throughout the industry. When he finally retired, his farewell party was attended by some of the biggest names in Hollywood, all of whom had been touched by his gentle wisdom and generous spirit. Marcus, meanwhile, went on to become a successful director in his own right, known for creating sets where everyone felt valued and respected. He never forgot the lesson he learned that morning about the difference between authority and leadership, and he made it his mission to ensure that no one on his sets ever felt the way he had made Sam feel. The story serves as a reminder that true character is revealed not in moments of triumph, but in moments of choice. The choice to stand up for what's right, the choice to treat others with dignity, the choice to see the humanity in everyone we encounter. In an industry often characterized by ego and competition, the events of that morning on Stage 7 became a testament to the power of basic human decency. It showed that genuine strength comes not from putting others down, but from lifting them up, and that the most important performances we give are not in front of cameras, but in the everyday interactions that define who we are as human beings. The quiet observer had become an active participant in a moment that would ripple outward, touching lives and changing perspectives in ways that no scripted scene ever could. And in the end, that might be the most important role any of us ever play. Not the character we portray for the cameras, but the person we choose to be when we think no one is watching. Because someone is always watching. And how we choose to act in those moments defines not just our character, but the character of the world we're helping to create.